Let's turn that off. No more dancing. It's time to work. Kind of. Welcome back to another episode, my lords, ladies, and gentlemen. I hope this message finds you well and educated and happy and enjoying the rest of your Thursday, whatever it is that you decide to get up to this glorious night. You are not in the community. What are you doing? There is the insight sessions. We've just completed the first six free webinars on the development of situational awareness, going through the exact specifics of how it works, why it works, when it works, how to practice, how to develop habits, and all of the research that goes into every single one of them as well. The link to join the community is always in the description for these when it goes out live. It's going out live now. Sorry, when it goes out recorded tomorrow, there's a free version and a paid version. You get these webinars and the free one. If you want to eventually add it on up and then join us in Axiom as well, you're more than welcome. We'd love to have you there for the extra sessions that we do. So, the inference cycle. Let's get into it. Let's waste no time. It is one of those things that every investigator needs to know. Every investigator should use. Whether it's been named as the inference cycle or not will change depending upon whatever organization or outfit it is that you work for. But these steps remain an integral part of the investigation process. So one of the things we could look to get into here is the mechanics need to be understood, right? And in order to do that, we need to properly understand something uncomfortable to be able to do that, right? Human beings are terrible at handling suspicion. Historically, suspicion became accusation very quickly, and it's odd and annoying how history is very much repeating itself, right? Now, in early criminal justice systems, confession really often mattered more than evidence. Inquisitorial systems just assumed guilt. Some certainty replaced structured reasoning. It was medicine that changed it. Arthur Conan Doyle trained under Joseph Bell, and Bell would observe a patient who walked into a room and infer occupation, lifestyle, travel, history, illness. We actually have an episode on Joseph Bell in our real-life Sherlock series. We're up to Jerome Caminada, but the fun stuff is still to come. Not that isn't fun that has already gone by default. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Anyway, back to Bell. Crucially, he didn't conclude from observation. He generated a working hypothesis, a working diagnosis, and then he tested it. Symptom, hypothesis, examination, then confirmation or rejection. That's the inference cycle. Holmes is Bell dramatized. When Holmes says in A Study in Scarlet, it is a capital mistake to theorize before one has data, he's not being witty. I mean, he is his own version of it, but it's not strictly about the wit. He is articulating a cognitive safeguard. He is saying that once you commit to theory prematurely, your perception then bends to it. The inference cycle exists because humans are narrative creatures. We love coherence. We love closure. We love villains. We love heroes. But reality really doesn't give a shit about narrative satisfaction. Just pick a country. So the cycle was very much born out of intellectual humility. It's not a bureaucratic process. It is a correction of sorts, but for human weakness. Okay? So, step one, suspicion. Suspicion is the spark. In private investigation, suspicion arrives at your door emotionally loaded. A client believes someone has stolen. A manager believes someone's lying. A partner believes someone's cheating. A family believes someone's gone missing, or worse. The emotional intensity is already there. Psychologically speaking, this activates motivated reasoning. The brain wants confirmation of the suspicion because confirmation reduces uncertainty. Ambiguity is metabolically expensive. Neuroscience research shows the anterior cingulate cortex lights up like a goddamn delicious Christmas tree under all of that ambiguity. The brain wants nothing more than to shut that down. So suspicion feels a little bit like urgency. But in the inference cycle, suspicion it's not a verdict. It is a trigger condition. So the first discipline, you could say it's linguistic. Right? As a reflective standpoint, you don't say he stole, she cheated, whatever it is. You would say it is alleged that funds are missing and that X, whoever the name is, they might be responsible. That subtle shift is the first act of detachment. Right? It's like when I run my memory classes, and I was talking to my daughter about it. I'm pointing like she's still over there. That's why we were revising. I was talking to her about it only last night. When we were going through her flashcards, doing the lightness system revision for her GCSEs, every now and again when one didn't come, she'd go, "Oh, I don't remember." I go, "Don't say that." She'd go, "What do you mean? I don't remember." I was, okay, sit with that for now. Just humor me. Don't say it. Right? But I can't remember. Fine. Humor me. Just don't say it. Work with me. Move that card somewhere back in the stack, and we went through the rest, and it came back. She smiled because she was going to say it again. I was like, "Don't say it. Just talk through your image." She did, and all of the information came flooding back to her. Holmes says in the Boscombe Valley mystery, we balance probabilities and chose the most likely. Now notice he doesn't say we assert probabilities. He says we balance them. Suspicion must be reframed as a testable question. If you can't turn suspicion into a falsifiable proposition, you are not investigating. You are reacting. Yeah. Happy birthday, my friend. Hope you have a wonderful day. What are you up to? I mean, clearly it's amazing. Now you're sat here listening to me waffle on. But I hope you're having a wonderful day, whatever it is you're up to. Anyway, step 2. Step 2 of the inference cycle is hypothesis, but it's hypothesis as a temporary model. This is a proprietary model of private investigation. I have my own versions that I teach and work with. This is one that goes through all private investigation. Now that I say that out loud, it's all investigation, private or otherwise, right? But with that, we move into a kind of dangerous territory. The hypothesis stage is really where most people think they're being logical while they are quietly becoming emotional. A hypothesis is not a belief. It is a predictive structure. If the hypothesis is true, then certain things within whatever it is that you're working on, they should be observable. If those things are not observable, then the hypothesis weakens. Modern cognitive science describes belief updating mathematically, right? And when this goes out live afterwards, I keep saying live. When this goes out afterwards. I'll put the equation on the screen so you can see it. Okay. It's loads of P's and H's and factoring and all sorts. But what this means conversationally is quite simple. Your confidence in an explanation should change when new evidence appears. If evidence accumulates, confidence increases. If contradictory evidence appears, then confidence decreases. Now, if your confidence doesn't move, you are no longer reasoning. You are defending either your own identity or someone else's. Holmes does his best to articulate this quite clearly in The Sign of Four. When you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. Notice the structure within it. Elimination precedes certainty. The inference cycle demands that you design hypotheses that can be disproven. If your hypothesis can't be contradicted by reality, it is unfalsifiable. And unfalsifiable ideas are beliefs, not investigative tools. The next stage is really about evidence collection, right? It's elegant. It's rarely practiced well, in that if the hypothesis is true, what must exist in the world? Right? That question should change everything. If someone committed fraud, there should be financial anomalies. If someone was present at a scene, there should be digital traces, timestamps, corroboration of some sort. If someone is lying, there should be some kind of narrative instability under a steadily increasing cognitive load. This is reverse engineering of reality. That's on the internet forever. That's back at me. Holmes demonstrates it in The Silver Blaze. You know, the curious incident of the dog in the night time. The dog did nothing. But if the intruder were unknown, the dog would have barked. Therefore, the intruder was known. Spoiler alert, if you haven't read The Adventure of Silver Blaze. Absence of expected evidence is evidence. Right? This stage looks to prevent confirmation bias because you're not wandering through data hoping to feel correct. You are designing the evidential footprint in advance. Without this step, you're not investigating. You are browsing. And then we look at it in the next stage as more collection without selective attention. Right? This is perception of information. So if you look at the research on selective attention, it shows that we filter aggressively. Look at the invisible gorilla experiment. You know, with the basketball pitches and inattentional blindness. If nothing else, it demonstrates just how easily we miss unexpected information when we're focused on a task. Holmes says, you see, but you do not observe. Observation is structured attention. So when you're collecting evidence, the disciplined investigator collects three categories: confirming, contradictory, and context. Most people collect confirming evidence because it feels productive. It creates the perception of forward momentum. But this investigative strength, it comes from deliberately searching for disconfirming evidence. What would damage my theory? That question requires psychological courage. In Sherlockian terms, this is where you train yourself to resist like a narrative seduction, almost. The next stage is about verification and really connected to the fragility of memory. It's like if we were to make up the term, this is uncomfortable science, right? Memory is reconstructive. Elizabeth Loftus demonstrated that suggestion can alter recollection. Confidence does not correlate strongly with accuracy. Witnesses can be sincere and irrefutably wrong at the same time. So verification is not an insult to a witness, it is a necessity. Corroboration means independent convergence. So you've got these two independent lines of evidence that are pointing in the same direction. Holmes says in the Norwood Builder, there's nothing more deceptive than an obvious fact. Obvious facts are often narratively delicious, satisfying. But narrative smoothness is not evidential strength. Verification means checking timestamps, validating documents, testing chain of custody, evaluating source reliability. The inference cycle really institutionalizes skepticism. It demands that evidence earn its credibility. Then the next stage will be more about evaluation. Maybe the crucible, if I was going to be dramatic about it. Moi, dramatic, I know. So let's say the evidence appears to support your hypothesis, right? It feels wonderful. It feels elegant. It feels intelligent. It feels coherent. But this is where cognitive dissonance research becomes relevant. So when you've got contradictory data, people experience discomfort and then often reinterpret the data to try and preserve said belief. Holmes dabbles with that in The Yellow Face. He instructs Watson to whisper Norbury if he becomes overconfident. Again, echoed in BBC Sherlock Season 4, Episode 1. That's Doyle acknowledging the psychological hazard of expertise. You ever meet a self-professed expert, all they're really telling you is, I'm comfortable with no longer learning. I used to never be an expert and be comfortable with that idea is beyond me. But anyway, in the evaluation stage, if you are a disciplined thinker, you are moving towards what alternative explanation fits this evidence equally well. So if there is one, the hypothesis remains provisional, right? The stage demands intellectual humility. It demands that you prefer accuracy over ego. The stage would be about whether you sustain, you modify, or you reject the hypothesis in development based on whatever information and evidence and data that you've been working with at that time. You might have heard me use Jim's phrase time and time again about validation, dismissal, and clarification. So if your evidence strongly supports the hypothesis and it withstands verification, then the suspicion is sustained. The case proceeds. If evidence is partially supported, reveals a few inconsistencies, the hypothesis has to be modified. The cycle just loops back to evidence identification. If evidence contradicts the hypothesis, it's rejected altogether. So your suspicion in stage 1 has to be reformulated. Rejection isn't failure, it's calibration. right? This is Bayesian updating in action. Beliefs shift according to evidence. But I bet we can all think of several beliefs that don't shift in accordance with any evidence. There is a jump towards interpretation, right? And here's a difficult truth. Most people struggle more with rejection than with failure. Failure is external. Rejection of a hypothesis is in here and in here. The inference cycle forces you to detach your identity from the explanation that you are developing. Now, there are, or rather there could be, I think might be the most honest way of phrasing it, psychological corruptions to the cycle, right? It is doing your best as an operator to step back. I can't step back any further. There's a wall here. To step back and analyze the vulnerabilities of your work. You know, whether it's suspicion that's contaminated by emotion, or hypothesis that's fused with identity, or evidence identification narrowed by expectation, collection biased by selective attention, verification weakened by convenience, and then acceptance driven by ego. This is where confirmation bias, overconfidence bias, and premature closure live. The inference cycle is not an administrative procedure. It is a psychological defense system. It exists because humans are brilliant pattern detectors, but really bad pattern testers. Without structure, we see patterns everywhere. With structure, we test them. So let's try and land the plane now. Right? Sherlock wasn't remarkable because he noticed mud on trousers. He was remarkable because he refused to collapse uncertainty prematurely. This inference cycle is, or rather can be, character training disguised as method. It really asks you to tolerate ambiguity, to resist emotional certainty, to detach from theories that are just elegant, and then to update without defensiveness, to begin again without resentment. Holmes shouts in frustration, "Data, data, data. I cannot make bricks without clay." The inference cycle looks to ensure you never attempt to. Right, so if you want Sherlockian skill, it's not really about just memorizing more trivia. You can do this through strengthening your relationship with uncertainty. Right? Build a mind that can hold suspicion without rushing to a narrative. A mind that can test, verify, update, and restart. That's the discipline behind the myth. That's the inference cycle. And if you train it consistently, you don't just become better at investigation, you become more resistant to your own cognitive illusions. That's Sherlockian. So when we listen to podcasts, we have a tendency just to move on afterwards. Please don't. Put this to use. Practice this. And if you haven't subscribed to the podcast, now is your time. Check the description box when this goes out. You'll find the links to join the community, and we'll see you very soon for an insight session. Take it easy. Bye.